to unpack the strategic implications, the regional risks, and what this means for global stability going forward. We're now joined on the line by Amir Bagherioromi, a South African Iranian independent political analyst and writer focused on Iran, the Middle East, and global power dynamics. Amir, a very good evening to you. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening to you and all the listeners and viewers. Thank you for having me.
As we really try and get a sense of the bigger picture, how significant is this latest strike, especially looking at the latest threat of strikes and counter-strikes between the US and Iran in the broader context of their long-standing tensions?
Yeah, I think any strike, regardless of, which one was the initial strike and which one was the counter, it is quite a significant event in this already shaky ceasefire. Pardon me. I think from the beginning, a lot of people were pessimistic about the sustainability of this ceasefire or the seriousness of this ceasefire, mainly because in two previous occasions during negotiations with Iran, both US and Israel attacked Iran while the negotiations were ongoing. So I think the Iranian side, from the very beginning of the ceasefire, knew that this will not necessarily be something that they rely on, purely because their experience the two previous times were one of failure. And once they knew that the Americans and Israelis were not serious about the peace deal and the negotiations, purely because Iran's number one demand in its 10 conditions was unconditional stop of attacks on Iran, Lebanon, Yemen, Iraq, and the countries in the region. And when Iran realized 2 weeks into it, there's no stop in that regard. There's no need for Iran to stop either, showing its commitment and loyalty to its allies and proxies in the region.
Now, President Donald Trump has essentially made a threat saying Iran will pay the price. What should one make of this rhetoric? I mean, is it aimed at deterrence? Is it suggesting the possibility of further U.S. military action? What's to be made of it?
You can have different perspectives on it. If I have to look at it from the very recent historical memory of mine, I think 2 months ago he tweeted, "Tonight a civilization will die." Did that happen? No. Has he threatened Iran over and over again without any action? Yeah, he has. He never really shows backbone in his talk. He doesn't walk the talk really. But at the end of the day, we know that we are still talking about the U.S. military. I'm not saying they are the strongest military anymore. I think they have been shown otherwise. But I still think they are one of the strongest militaries in the world. And should they decide to do something mighty, they have the capabilities to do it. Will they have, enough consent around the decision-making table amongst themselves? I don't know if that's the case right now, because that hasn't been the case in the previous few months.
As you touched on the issue around the ceasefire, I mean, yes, it was already looking pretty fragile before these latest developments. Has it effectively collapsed, or is there still some sort of realistic path back to de-escalation as we try and read between the lines to, I mean, for one, the world in itself is feeling the ripple effects of what is happening with the tensions in the Middle East?
I think over and over again, we have come to the realization that that decision needs to be made by US, and whether it is capable of controlling its ally, which is Israel in this case. Iran has repeatedly, over the years, over the decades as a matter of fact, has shown that it is flexible to negotiate, and it is flexible and willing enough to showcase its commitment. It has always been the case where the US or the Western governments that have pulled out of agreements that Iran had committed to. And this has happened over and over again, right? So if I have again to look at it from a historical point of view, I can confidently say that the Iranian side has continuously showed its commitment to the deals and agreements it makes. It's continuously showing. So is there hope? I think from Iranian side, yes, but the Iranian side continuously puts the ball in the West's court, or in when I say West, I mean US and Israel in this case. And that, for this matter, is that are you willing to accept basic integrity when it comes to negotiations and fulfill your demands? And it is continually shown otherwise. So should US and Israel decide to truly commit to what they agree upon, then there is hope for negotiations. If they don't, then no, I don't think there is hope.
Yeah.
And it goes back to their leadership to decide whether they want to continue these tensions, perhaps because it benefits them. Then sure. But if they're serious about peace, then let's meet halfway.
Yeah, because beyond the security dimension, markets are closely watching developments. We've seen the impact of the prolonged tensions on oil prices, global trade routes, and inflation pressures essentially around the world. But regional powers like Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the Gulf states have a lot at stake. How concerned will they be about being drawn into what would be a wider conflict?
I mean, if I were in their position, I'd be very concerned. I would imagine that they are very concerned. And I think before this war happened, in February and beginning of March, they were quite confident that them being an ally and a major, supporter of the U.S. economy through the arms deals that they have with the U.S., they would at least more or less be protected, against any form of aggression by any country, particularly Iran, that continuously showcases itself as the dominant power in the region and perhaps now in the whole world. And once these, attacks on these countries happened, the likes of Bahrain, UAE, Qatar, Saudi, they did, in real case, see that US does not have their back, does not have their interests at heart, will actually take its, weaponry and ammunition and its defense force out of these countries in defense of Israel and will leave them defenseless. I think this will take those countries in the region into real strategic, thinking and consideration that perhaps a defense deal with Iran that has proved it can defend itself against any kind of aggression, regardless of how small or mighty it might be, might actually be a better idea. And if they had to think a bit more strategically in terms of the regional defense pack, Iran might end up being a better partner to them. But are they willing to accept the reality that they have wasted trillions of dollars in defense pack that never benefited them? That's going to be a difficult decision or a difficult, realization to digest. But as any gambler or recovery gambler would tell you, that the sooner you accept your loss, the sooner you will recover and get back to recovery.
And that is spot on. Thank you very much. Thanks for speaking to us this evening.